Let's welcome our guest. We have with us Mark Meirowitz, who is professor at State University of New York Maritime College. He is an expert in geopolitics and international affairs with special focus on U.S. foreign policy, the Middle East, and global security issues. Thank you, Mark, for the time.
Pleasure.
Trump extended the ceasefire with no expiry date. His own advisors have privately warned him, according to CNN, that removing this expiry eliminates the pressure on Iran to move. How do you read the situation?
I mean, we're not there and we don't know what the back and forth is, but it's almost, I really analogize this to a chess game. And, everybody's playing their pieces. The Iranians block the strait, the Americans block the strait, then they're going to be having a meeting, then they're not having a meeting. We're actually getting nowhere at the present time. There were plans put forward, a 15-point plan and a 10-point plan, but if you read them together, you see that they have really not much in common in terms of priority. The United States wants the nuclear program and nuclear enrichment in Iran to end. And the Iranians want sanction relief and funds. That's their main thing. So long as that wide gap exists, where is the basis for negotiation? What they should be doing is having teams of people getting together, trying to prepare for the main negotiators being Vance and maybe Kushner and it's Witkoff, but just to have people traveling in and then having meetings. I mean, I really commend the Field Marshal Pakistan, Munir, for getting the road going on mediation and discussion. That's, nothing can be bad about that. But the idea of it is to string along the United States. I mean, somebody was writing, I think at the time, New York Times or Wall Street Journal today, that this is very reminiscent of the negotiations the United States had with Vietnam. It's a settlement of the Vietnam War, if you will. And that took months and months for a very skilled negotiator who was Kissinger. So, just to fly in, fly out.
Even the JCPOA took 18 months back to back.
Absolutely. So I think, and that, if you think about that it's not that long a time, but when we're sitting here and we're thinking in terms of days, minutes, and hours, and we want a development every few minutes that we can talk about, I think they should have teams get together behind closed doors. They should be talking about
should be talking continuously.
And then they should be preparing for the main negotiators to come. And I'm also a corporate lawyer by background, and I don't recall that the business people were sitting there the whole time. They show up at the closing.
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
They make the closing. And that's not happening here. And so I think we're wide apart in where we want to be. And I think also the Iranians have a penchant for stringing things along and pushing things along. And I think also they are living in a dream world where they think they're dealing with President Obama and Secretary of State Kerry, and they're not. They're dealing with something totally different, which is President Trump and his team. And that's a whole other game, a whole other negotiating platform. And they better start thinking more realistically about.
That's a very pertinent point that you have raised, because from the Iranian perspective, they think they have dealt with the Republicans, they have dealt with the Democrats, they know the mindset. But here you say that this is a completely different ball game. Are you insinuating Trump being a different person, or the Israeli angle involved in this conflict?
There are many elements in this conflict. I would call it some sort of a soup, if you will. The ingredients of which, the main ingredient is Trump and what he decides. He's the president and he's commander-in-chief, and he's the one who's moved this along. You have Israel, you have Europe, and of course you have the Gulf states, you have Pakistan, you have all the different parties playing a role here. And, you don't get a negotiation, and so just not to be repetitive, by just launching into, well, let's sit down and sign on the dotted line. I mean, you've got to narrow the gap between the parties. As so long as Iran believes that it can maintain and continue a nuclear program, then that is a tremendous fallacy in their thinking.
Right. The White House's reasoning on the paper is that Iran's government is seriously fractured, civilian leadership wanting a deal, IRGC commanders refusing concessions while the blockade remains. Is this an accurate read in your assessment, or is Washington projecting the fracture it wants to see? And either way, is extending a ceasefire because the other side is internally damaged or divided, rather than bringing your terms completely stable at the forefront. What do you say about this assessment of Washington?
Well, I think there are two parts to it. Number one, I do agree with the president's Truth Social post where he says, they're fractured. He wants to give them a chance to, as we say, get their act together and figure out how they want to proceed and who is going to proceed on their behalf. That's part one. That's really important. I think it's clear the regime is definitely divided after the major leadership, the supreme leader, was killed and the other supreme leader disappeared. There looks like there is a battle for control or some sort of a tremendous division in the leadership. But the second part is much more important, and that is once you deal with whoever it is that they pick to work on this thing or do this deal, is that a deal that will hold and that Iran will be bound by and will have to follow? And how do you know that that's the case? And secondly, if you make a deal, supposing with nuclear enrichment or nuclear plans or facilities, how do you know that it's verifiable? What's the credibility that Iran...
Because at the moment there is no access. There is no access to those installations and all. Nobody knows what's going on inside of it.
Well, I would also add that the original deal, the JCPOA, which President Obama negotiated with Iran, had tremendous gaps in terms of verification. You say this now, and that's a very perceptive point. But the fact that when they made the deal, military installations were off the list. There could be no verification in military. This was called possible military dimensions. And furthermore, any verification had to be done where you had to go first to IAEA and make a request for access, and then Iran had 25 days or something to respond to it. I mean, how do you do that? What you need is, which was asked for in the previous deal, which was rejected also by Obama, is anytime, anywhere verification, meaning the IAEA, which, by the way, Rafael Grossi, they're the top of the line, top notch, top flight to do it. They can't do their job if they don't have that, exactly as you pointed out.
Wow. So Vice President Vance was almost there at Joint Base and Air Force 2 was ready. The trip was cancelled within the hour of the Truth Social post, I would say, for Pakistan, which had prepared an entire second round at Islamabad, the second cancellation in 2 weeks. Where do you see Islamabad now? Because he has clearly mentioned Pakistan's two leaders, the Prime Minister, the Field Marshal, in his tweet, yet he and Iran both need this desperately and not listening to them at the same time. Where do you see the mediators going from here?
Well, let me say this. I mean, who Trump listens to, he doesn't listen to anybody, and he makes his own decisions. And, whether you like him or not, I certainly support the president in many things that he's done. He's a game changer for America, no question, in terms of America's foreign policy, but that's possibly another discussion. At the end of the day, tremendous kudos and thanks to Pakistan for pushing forward on this, and I think they should continue doing so. And I don't think, if you don't mind the point, that it doesn't hurt, or it's certainly helpful, that the Field Marshal is the one who recommended the president for the Nobel Prize, which I think the president does deserve, and I think that was a very appropriate recommendation by Field Marshal Munir. So, I mean, I think there are a lot of moving parts here, and a lot of it is all the personalities too. It's Trump's read on the Iranian leaders. Who are they? He's a very good judge of personality and trying to figure out who these people are. And every 5 minutes he sees another one showing up. And by the way, I wanted to not to forget the fact that in my New York Post today headline in the cover, there are pictures of the 8 girls who are going to be hanged in Iran. Besides the torture and the persecution of protesters who are protesting on the street for women's rights, for civil rights. I mean, if this is who you're sitting with, if I may say candidly, if these are your negotiators, who are facilitating this kind of behavior, I don't know if I would feel very comfortable taking their, letting them sign on the dotted line and say, I'm going to do this with the nuclear or whatever. How would you trust somebody? I would say, release the political prisoners. Show that you are legitimate. Show that you are a decent human being. But obviously they're not. So if they're not decent and they're killing thousands of protesters, then they're sitting around having negotiations. I think there's something very, ugly about it, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's something that is the next level of coercive diplomacy, I would say, where you don't directly shoot the messenger, but you send the signals which are really hostile. You're right in that respect. There is a deeper question here for tonight, that the blockade remains. The Lebanon ceasefire is dying. Well, the military planners, according to Reuters, are getting together in London to discuss the reopening of Hormuz. So the world is in panic. Is this pause enough for the peace?
I want to make a point about, journalism, the news. There used to be a time when you got your newspaper and you read your newspaper and then that was it. You went on the TV, you watched the news, and that was it. Today, with social media, it's 24/7. It's day and night.
It's nonstop.
Right, and so your expectations are so much improved that I want an answer in 2 minutes. I want developments in 1 day, in 5 minutes, in half an hour. It doesn't work like that. Things have to be worked out. And you mentioned about the Lebanon ceasefire, but think about this. All these years, Lebanon and Israel never had a meeting, never had a negotiation.
True.
Now they're starting to talk. Now, is everybody expecting that they're going to sit down and it's going to say, okay, come out of the room. It's all finished. It's fine now. Hezbollah is going to disarm. It's not a problem anymore. Everybody can go home and no problem. Is that what we're expecting? If that's what you're expecting, then I think, you're not being realistic about, this. And again, nothing wrong with the journalists. Love the journalists. They're fantastic. I admire them. But they want a story. They keep pushing forward, and especially with social media, you can go to social media and you can see the latest one I looked, something about Iran, 15 seconds. I mean, no human being can operate this quickly. So, sometimes the chess game moves, I don't want to belittle it as a chess game, but I mean, it moves slowly, where, each
especially where the size of the conflict is this big and so deep and spread over decades, let's put it this way.
Well, I would also add interconnected. All these pieces are interconnected. I mean, look, if you look at Hormuz, right, and you look at just that part of it, the impacts on the economy and just the fallout, it's not the right word to use in connection with this maybe, but the fallout to the economy in the world, shipping lanes, marketing. I mean, that's something at maritime, you've got ships stuck there. I mean, and oil, and you could make a list of 50,000 things that are resulting from this. That's just on the issue of Hormuz.
Right.
Hormuz is an international strait. By what right does Iran believe, by any stretch of the imagination, that they think that the Strait of Hormuz, international strait, is Iran territorial waters? Well, it isn't, and it's not theirs to decide how they're going to deal with it. That's not fair. Everybody should have the fair transit passage.
Mark Meirowitz, thank you so much for your very candid analysis. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.